Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
TV and Radio Network. I welcome back Tricia Copeland. She was a guest on the Corner Bookstore recently. Tricia is a prolific writer, many books, a lot of different fields: romance, fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, paranormal, just a wide variety. But as a writer of many books, she also now is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur. And so we're going to explore on the Wise Ones some of the wisdom that she has from her authoring background and what she's learned from the business background. So please join me, Tricia.
Hi, thank you, Red.
And Tricia's joining us today from Denver, Colorado.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. Always love to have somebody returning. You have, I didn't count up all the books, but you have quite a few. Do you know off the top of your head how many you've written?
23 as of this summer.
Okay. Almost 24. That's pretty darn impressive. And especially since most of your books are not easy writes. They're, if you had, let's say, how-to books on gardening, this and that could all be 40, 50 page ebooks, that would still be difficult, but most of your books are much more involved in that, and they come from what you talk about. The magic pervades society, and it kind of links everything together. Why don't you take that thought for a moment and tell us how magic permeates the kinds of things that you write?
Yes, so I started, my first series was I guess a fictional retelling of my experience with overcoming anorexia. And from there, I quickly hopped into writing fantasy because that's what I loved. I love reading fantasy. I love fantasy art, music, movies, series. So I jumped to that genre. But when I thought about my overall brand and what I was hoping to show readers, have readers experience, it was definitely character driven and showing characters that no matter what situation they're in, whether they're vampires or normal humans, it could be a romance story, it could be a dystopian story, but showing them face their struggles, their obstacles, their challenges, and figuring out like what is special about them, what talents they have, and how they can share those with others to help not only themselves, but their community.
Do
So
vampires
that's a little bit, what? Do vampires help people?
no,
In my stories, they do.
do vampires have a romantic life?
Oh yes, definitely. I think I don't know if there's any like sentient being that doesn't have a romantic life, right? You're gonna
But
see my cat here. Sorry.
yeah, I see. As you're writing, it's a point in time, a couple of books, okay, you're still writing, half a dozen books. At what point in time did you really come to the realization that this is more than just writing the occasional book? This is my passion. This is what I want to do, and you actually became heavily involved in the business operations of writing.
Yeah, it came for me pretty fast because I published 2 books in the first year that I published, and then I published, and for several years there, I was publishing 3 books a year. So I was publishing a lot pretty fast and had a steep learning curve, but it was good that I knew people in the business. Like my editor she was a friend of mine and she'd already published her own book. So she was self-published and she knew a group of editors and proofreaders and people who do covers and people who did formatting. And so I learned, how to do all those things from these people. And then, so I just feel like I just keep learning things like how to market, how to do social media, which changes every minute, right? How to do social media, how do you grow your email list, how do you grow a group of people that want to follow you? Yeah, so there's so much, and I wasn't a business person before this, so it's definitely a learning curve.
I think most of us are not business people when we begin our writing. We get our book written, we're happy, it's published, we're now a published author, and then marketing. What's marketing? And then I should have started this earlier. And so we write a second book, and I should have started my marketing earlier. And it's one of those things that as we learn, okay, I'm starting, this is my next book, I probably ought to start telling people what it's about so that when I'm done, I haven't wasted that amount of time. Obviously, it's a learning curve. And what was the most difficult part about letting go of the reins of actually writing to actually being the owner of the business?
I guess it's just accounting to make sure you're not spending more than you're making as part of it. Book margins are kind of small, so you can't do everything. I definitely wanted to do audiobooks from the beginning, but those are much more expensive than just your ebook or a paperback. So I waited to do some of those audiobooks where I thought, it would be most advantageous to my bottom line. And I still want to do more, but I wait till I, have enough money to afford that expense. But I love that format. And so I always look for things like that are going to bring, new readers in different formats, and just kind of looking at the overall, you want to kind of, for me, I want to balance out everything I'm doing. So I don't want to put too much in one basket. I really like, I guess, one thing I was told to me from the beginning is don't always count on social media because those algorithms are going to change. So I really cultivated my email list, and I have like over 10,000. 10,000 people wouldn't sound like a lot to someone else, but for me, it's a lot. And I get emails back from people when I send them out. So that makes me really happy to be able to talk to my readers and get excited with them and have them interact with me and tell me what kind of characters they want. So yeah, I think bringing that human element and the closer connections helps, and not feeling like you're so far away from people.
To get on your email list, they would just go to triciacopeland.com.
Yep, and I have 2 free short stories. So if you go to my website, it's right there at the top. You can sign up for 2 free short stories so you can test my writing. And I just was wondering today if I should do first chapters instead of short stories, but I don't know. That's just like a thought that came into my brain. Like, is it better to give away a couple of free chapters, which I usually do to my subscribers once they're already subscribers when I have a new book, but is it better to give a couple of free chapters and then lead them to the whole book, or is it better to give like a just short story that's not related. I mean, not related, right? But just a sample. I don't know.
The only thing I could suggest would be, what do other people do?
Right. No, I think a lot of people give short stories. But I think people do both. So I don't know. I could test that. I do some testing sometimes. I think that's always a good thing. You never know what's going to work for one kind of audience versus another kind of audience.
I know when I go into the bookstore and I'm looking for something and there's the author I'm looking for, I've read that, but that cover's not the same. And I know that they go in there, they change the font, they change the color, they change the image, whatever. And it may be a 20-year-old book, but it looks like something. This doesn't look like what I read, but I recognize, and you pick it up and I start, oh, 2002 is the copyright. That's one of the things I always check when I pick up the books to find out how old they are. Because there are sometimes that, did I miss this book in that author series? And
right. It's hard to remember.
it is hard when somebody's written 23 or more books. It is hard sometimes. And some of the authors, 50, 60 or more books, and they may not all be the same exact characters, but they're close enough or they're interwoven so that, I want to read that one. So that's one of the things I look at the cover. I look at the copyrights. One of the first things I look at, because I want to know, well, how new is this book? So, and that was
right. And
go ahead.
yeah, no, I saw the other day, I was looking at, it was a romance series I was looking at, but the author actually had 2 series that had the exact same books in them, but they were named 2 different series. Like one was named the Finding Home series, so it was supposed to be sweet romances, and the other was named Billionaire Romance series or something, because some of the characters are billionaires. But I was like, wow, I'd never seen that before, because they're just trying to bring in different audiences basically for the same books, which was really interesting to me.
I had not heard that. That is really and truly interesting. I'm still thinking of that concept right this minute. I don't know if somebody would be disappointed. Well, I already bought that book. And then now, but if they're really and truly different audiences, they wouldn't be looking at the first one anyway.
Right. But the books themselves had the same covers and the same titles. It was just the series names that were different.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think I looked at him and was like, oh, I already read that. Why is it called a different series? But if you're trying to appeal to billionaire readers, then having billionaire in the series title would do it for you, right?
Okay, so you've written more than almost 24 books. When you first started writing, how long did it take you to write a book versus how long does it take you to write a book in this the last 3 or 4 books you've written?
Yes. So I thought I was writing one book, and my editor tore it apart into 2 books. It was too long. So those first 2 books took me 7 years to write. But that was like doing it, after hours, after my kids went to sleep, writing maybe an hour a night, and not even that fast, maybe. So, and putting it down and picking it up and twiddling with it. But I've written a book in short as 6 months from beginning to end. Not 6 months, sorry, 6 weeks from beginning to end. So if I really work at it, I can write pretty fast. Like my last deadline, I had 7 days to write 40,000 words, and I got it done. So. Yeah.
Okay, so you write, but it still has to be edited, has to be published, has to be marketed. A lot of things that are involved in that. So when that first word goes down on the piece of paper and I'm starting my writing, to get through that whole process where you're turning it over to your publicist and saying, hey, I need your help. What's the average time on that? Because you're saying you're doing 2 or 3 a year.
Right. It's about 6 months, 6 to 9 months, depending on, how long I take to write it. But the editing process itself is usually 2 months. We have 2 rounds of editing, then a proofread. So that's 2 months, and then another week for formatting and putting all the cover together. So yeah, so 2 to 3 months for that post-production, I guess. Yeah.
Do you have any beta readers?
I do. I have beta readers in my newsletter group, and I have ARC readers. So those are really fun groups to have. And I rely on my family and friends as well.
And how do you track the amount of time that you have? Okay, I want to get the book written. I need to have it edited. So you have a beginning and a rough end. How do you track your time through that to know that, okay, I'm ahead of schedule. I really need to catch up?
Yeah, I guess I just know how fast I write. And so my deadline is when I have to turn my book into my editor. And then I kind of work back from that of how long I need to work. And my other work schedule is a little flexible, so I can wiggle in room there too.
So you start writing. When do you negotiate or contract an editor? At what point in time? 3 months, 6 months, or?
It's usually 6 months out. I'm pretty much a planning person, so depending on, I decide when I want to publish it, and then I work back from there. So I know it's going to take 2 to 3 months to edit and get it produced. It's going to take me 2 to 3 months to write it. So it's generally 6 months that I know, that I talk to her and say, okay, what's your schedule? And because we work around her schedule too.
Do you find any value in AI in anything you're doing?
It's funny because my husband was like, no, I don't use the AI at all. I'm like, are you sure it doesn't like suggest words when you're typing your email? He was like, oh, it does suggest words when I'm typing my email. But that's as far as I get with AI. Like Microsoft Word tries to tell me what it wants, what I should be writing, or it thinks I'm writing. But no, I haven't used AI at all.
Okay. What do you enjoy most about the whole process of the writing? Because you mentioned you get some feedback from people from the emails you send out. You obviously have signings as authors, and you attend conferences, and you're doing Today live TV. What part of your business do you really and truly enjoy the most?
I guess there's two. I mean, I love writing, and I love developing the plot lines and putting the characters through everything they have to be put through, and then having them have their happily ever afters, as well as that talking about books and talking about fantasy worlds and talking about characters and stories, talking with other readers. Those are my two main passions. And if I can weave in all the other stuff you have to get there, yeah.
How many hours a week do you dedicate to your business?
Oh, wow. Depends on how. So, when I had that 7-day deadline, it was 10 and 12 hours a day. But normal times, I would say 2 or 3 hours on average, not probably around 2, between, setting up social media and doing podcasts like this, and, setting up blogs. I have my own podcast, setting up emails, about 2 probably. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple hours writing, and then another couple, 3 hours on other related things, and maybe some periodic time during the week for a podcast or a TV show or whatever. And then when you go out for a signing, obviously there's some transportation and other logistics things in there. Do you do any speaking opportunities?
No, I haven't done any speaking. I've done some panels, like with other authors on different topics, different writing topics.
I remember here in Houston, we had the opportunity. I think it was a Zoom. I don't think she showed up in person. Okay, regardless. Anyway, but she's making very nice money. But she's a romance writer and well known. And so she came in. Let me say she came in. My brain fog. I can't remember whether she actually physically was there at the event or not. But she was there and very personable. Answered anything. Wasn't really a presentation. It's more just a question and answer session that lasted an hour or more. And I just, for a new author, and I write on nonfiction, there was still a lot of stuff in there that was of value, because the aspect was more on the business side of things, because she has written so much and she was making a very healthy living doing it. And so, well, I hope I get in that position one of these days, because that's pretty impressive. But so in your future, I assume there's another 23 books down the road. How do you start planning your future books? Do you have like a 5-year window, or do you just kind of let things happen, or what?
Yeah, so I'm at a bit of a crossroads right now. So the book I just handed to my editor, and we're in the editing stages right now, is the finale to my fantasy series, the Realm Chronicles series. So as far as fantasy, I'm not really sure where I'm going next with that. But I do have a romance novel in the works. I usually write romance and then fantasy. I switch back and forth. I do have a romance in the work. I'm about a third through that. So I have to figure out, probably I'm going to release that next fall after this fantasy. So yeah, I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, well, I have one more book in the top of my brain, but I have to figure out what comes next. So it's a different sort of feeling if you're not in the middle of a series and you're not sure like what's going to come after that.
So it's not that you sit down, I'm going to write 5 books in this series, and you kind of piecemeal, okay, this is what's going to happen over those 5 books. It just sort of, you write the first couple, and then as things develop, it may end up a 4-book series, it may end up a 5 or a 6-book series, depending on how your plot and your characters and all the rest of that stuff evolve.
Right. Yeah, I don't plan it out that specifically. So I am more of just letting me see where the character goes. I usually know like the beginning and the end, and then I fill in between.
Do you have any characters that are in between books that are in 2 different books, 2 different series?
I do. So my Kingdom Journal series started with a Trinity of Witches, and there's 4 books in that main series, and there's prequel, but I couldn't let those characters go. So when I finished that last series, I already knew that I had a character in the last book that was going to be a completely new series, which is the Fae series that I'm writing now. So, and those characters weave through this series, and she interacts with those characters too, for one main goal of like thwarting this evil archangel. So I call her that, and people say you can't have an evil archangel. I'm like, but she did become evil, so I don't know what to call her.
I think that Satan is an evil archangel because he was an
Right.
archangel. He was a seraphim, if I remember right, as far as the classification of angels, but he was definitely an archangel, fell from grace. So yeah, I believe you can have evil archangels. So
Yes,
now,
I wrote a short story and somebody made me take that out. So I was like, oh, okay.
when you use the word prequel, I noticed that I'm seeing some TV shows, NCIS Origins or whatever. So I'm seeing, we've already been through 22 seasons of NCIS. Now we have a prequel. Are any of your books worthy of a series prequel?
Right. So the Kingdom Journals definitely has a series prequel, and I wrote it between the 3rd and 4th book. So if you go back and read the prequel, then it gives you some insight into the antagonist and her backstory and why she is so evil and why she needs to be dealt with or gotten rid of. So that was a lot of fun. And I think I could write a prequel to the prequel at that point because it only shows parts of her life. It doesn't show like why she ended up the way she did. It just shows you what she did. So there's a lot of backstory to be written there too. And a lot of people like those antagonists that are a little bit gray, like, why did they start doing what they're doing and why did they have the goals they have?
Do you ever name any of your characters after people you know?
I do. My mother, this is a funny story. So my mom was reading my books and she said something about killing someone you knew in a book. So I ended up naming her naming a vampire, one of my vampires after her and killing her in the first book she was in. So I did kill my mom in a book, but it was kind of a joke.
You killed your mother in a book?
I know, that's horrible. Isn't that horrible? But it was a joke because she kind of dared me to do it. Like she, she did kind of dare me to do it. So I had to do it at that point.
But that's the only one.
She was much beloved. And that's not the only character I've killed, but she was much beloved before she died. So yeah.
When do you decide to kill a character? Is it at the beginning of the series? You know that person's not going to be around at the end?
No, not always. Well, that person I knew because my mom kind of dared me. But yeah, so in this Realm Chronicles series, the Fae series, there's someone that was a main character that I ended up killing that I didn't think I would, but it was something, one of those for the greater good of the plot line kind of had to be done situations, which is sad. I miss him as a character, and I think a lot of my readers were not happy either, but yeah.
Now, when you kill off your character, is it sudden? I mean, just within one sentence, they're gone? Or is there something that evolves to heighten the experience?
So far, it's been sudden. and surprises because the fairies don't get sick or cancer or anything like that, and witches and vampires generally don't too. So far, I haven't had any long drawn out, the person is dying. So yeah, that makes it a little more dramatic, I guess. Yeah.
I can remember actually two books, two different, and I had to go back and reread literally 3 or 4 times. Did that person actually die? One was by a snake bite in Colorado back 100 years ago on the open print. I mean, main character just all gone, and it kind of really hit me. And then another one was in England and throat slashed. It was a character that was being developed to support somebody as the main supporting, and boom, gone. And I'm thinking to myself, they captured my emotions just so quickly because it was a rapid transition. And so, and when I see other ones, okay, it's leading up to this, they're in that situation and they may get killed, or they're certainly in danger, they're involved in whatever. So I was just kind of curious how you ended your characters' lives.
Yeah, both of them were in battle scenes. So yeah, I mean, one of them, they knew they were going into a battle scene, and then, so that was the first one where my mom died. And then the other one, they didn't, like, it was a surprise attack. So there was no way they could have predicted what was going to happen.
Do you use the same editors for all the different genres that you write, or do you have some that are better suited for a particular genre?
I've had 2 different editors, and I just it was just chronological. So my first editor stopped editing and was focusing on writing, so I'm now using a new editor. But both of them were in the same company, so I sort of knew both of them. But yeah, they help me edit whatever genre I'm writing in.
Okay, what about your covers? Do you have the same designer, or is that farmed out a little bit?
Yeah, I have different designers. I have a local cover person here who started my first series that I did, and she does my romance series now. And then I have another designer she's in Britain actually, and she had like a pre-made cover that I saw that I really liked, and I said, okay, that's my character. So she's done my Fae series. So yeah, I've used a couple different people for cover people.
Have you changed a cover on any of your books yet?
I have. I changed the covers of my first series. I was just thinking that as I was telling you that story. So, and the first, it's the Being Me series. It's a college series. So I made it look very collegey, and it has some like invitations to a sorority part or a fraternity part, invitations to a party. And then I thought, I looked at the genre and said, this is not really what the cover didn't match what other people in the genre are doing for covers. So I changed my covers up to have characters that look more like a romance, and more like just to match the genre expected what other people were doing. So I have changed covers over time.
Now, are your covers something that you already know, or you just kind of leave it at the editorial discretion of the intellectual property of the designer?
No, yeah, I always have something in mind. I'm not the best at, I'm not the best at graphics or looking at something and knowing it looks good together. So I will definitely take cues from them. But as far as like the characters I want on them or the feel, I usually like search stock photos and find the photos of the characters to match what's in the book, right? And so I have a general idea of what I want there.
I had a client just within the last year, and he had a very distinctive thing 150 years ago, Texas plains, and he wanted this and this and this and this. And so I went to AI. I had an image created. Actually, I had 5 of them. I sent him 5 images, and I said, which ones you like? He said, second and fourth, whatever, second, third. And I took those 2, and I sent a description of what he really wanted on the cover to a designer, 2 of them. And I had them just do an ebook cover, and they sent it back to me. And okay, which one of these 2 do you like? And then he picked one, and then we took and made the rest of the covers like that. And so AI, I think, does have some places to help an author when you're not sure of something, particularly on an image part of it, because that illustration could be literally created in seconds. And okay, let's add a windmill to that. Let's add, more snow on them, whatever it may have. You just tweak. That's kind of what I want. Now let's turn it over to somebody and make it happen. So that might be something down the road as your new series. What do I really want? and you say, here's this book cover from this one, here's this one over here. I want to meld these two together, whatever it may happen to be. I think that might be a valid use because it's your intellectual property that you're describing and somebody's helping you with it, as opposed to writing 3 chapters of your book.
Right. Well, as opposed to searching through stock photos for 3 hours, right?
I would write a blog a day there for a long, long time, for literally a couple of years. And I spent literally more time finding a photo to publish with the blog than I did actually writing a blog. And it was just to find the right photo that matches what I'm saying is difficult. And for a cover, it's even more so. I'll usually get 5 different covers for my books and then put it out on, Facebook, or A or B, B or C, C or D, because it's not what I like, it's what my readers like. Okay, so we have some inspiring love stories and fun romance books.
Right. So this is my Being Me series, the college romance series. I call it a college romance series. It's kind of coming of age. It is the fictionalized account of overcoming anorexia. So those are the first 3 books. And yeah, so those are the second generation covers for that series.
Now these are in ebook and paperback. Do you have any hardcover books?
I don't have hardcover in these, just the paperback.
But you do have hardcover in some of your other ones?
In one, my middle grade book, Azrea, is, I don't know if it should be, I don't know if it's even on this page, because this is, I haven't updated this page yet. Oh, there it is. And that's not what the hardcover looks like. That's what the ebook looks like. So I did change that cover as well for just the ebook. But so for that book, I have the hardcover as well as the paperback. The artist did.
Was there a reason why you have not looked at the hardcovers, or just not popular for your genre?
Yeah, no, I just didn't think it was going to be that popular for my genre.
Mm-hmm. Your audiobooks, how did you get the right person to do the recordings?
That was definitely challenging. My first round of trying that is I went out on ACX, and at ACX you can go and you can just put your story out there and put it out to bid and say, who wants to read, who wants to narrate this for me? And I had several tries of finding someone that way and did not have success. I got people one person, like she couldn't, she had problems with her throat and she couldn't talk anymore, so she fell off. And another person, she wanted to charge me extra beyond what I was supposed to be paying. And ACX, has rules about that. And I was like, no, this isn't right. So I just kind of laid it aside. Like I didn't try to do that for a year. And then I was at a book con and I met a narrator who was just walking around handing out her cards. So I met her in person, knew she was a live person who did this before. So I contacted her later and she sent me some samples, and she ended up being the narrator for the first 2 books of the Kingdom Journal series. And then I needed a male narrator for the second 2 books. So I got her to give me some recommendations of people she knew and she trusted. So Dan Delgado did the second 2 books of my Kingdom Journal series. And then from there, I don't know how I found my fae. How did I find my fae? Oh, those 2 must have given me another recommendation, Jillian Yetter, who did my fae, or is hopefully doing my fae series. But and she was perfect. She has pink hair, or she had pink hair at the time, just like the character on my book. And she was a high school English teacher before she became a narrator. Just great for YA fantasy.
You have an expectation for the voice. Okay, if you have a Russian character or a Spanish character or a French character, there's a certain English accent that goes with those backgrounds. But when you have fairies and you have vampires, do you have a certain expectation for what that vampire voice is going to sound like?
Well, just like humans, it's based on where they were from. So if they were from Russia or they were from India or Africa, they would have the accent of the people that were from there.
Okay.
At least in my vampires. So yeah.
Okay, so your vampires are from all over the world.
Right. How
do you decide that I want this vampire to be Indian or Russian?
The way I did it or the way it kind of happened for me was that in my prequel, I was writing one of the main characters' mother's story. So it starts in the 15th century. It starts in the 15th century, and she was in France, and a group of witches burns her house down. So they flee to the UK, and in the UK, she meets another vampire. She'd never know, like, she's very sheltered because they were scared of the witches. But she does end up meeting like another vampire there. She'd only lived with humans before since she was a little girl, and he was from Norway. So, but back in the 1500s before it was Norway. So and then they start this huge, what would you call it, voyage or challenge or quest to try to make peace between the vampires and the witches. So they travel all over the world trying to gather vampires that want to make peace with the witches. So as she's doing all these travels, she meets all these different vampires and accrues them. So they all come into her fold and kind of form a group. So that's how my vampires found each other. Yeah.
How much research do you have to do to know what happened in 1500s in Norway?
I was going on Viking research at that point. Yeah. I like doing a lot of research. So yeah.
Yeah, we're getting toward the end of the show here. We got another couple minutes to go. How do people buy your books? How do they get in touch with you?
So you can go to my website, which is triciacopeland.com, TRICACOPELAND. It's on the screen. So that's the easiest place to go. All my books are on Amazon, paperback, some on audiobook, as well as ebook and Kindle and KU. Yep, that's my website.
So
if you go.
For our audio audience, that'd be Tricia, TRICIA, at Tricia Copeland, TRICIA, Copeland, COPELAND.com. So that's where you would go to find her, to get her books, to join her newsletter, to sign up, whatever they need to do. It's on your website. Is that right?
Yep, definitely.
Okay. I saw something when I was going through your website earlier today. You have an appearance coming up in April of 25. I think you've already finished all your 2024 personal showings.
Right. I'm attending. Yes, that is. Well, there's some holiday bazaars, but that's not any big book events. So I'm attending Authors Rock Roanoke in Roanoke, Virginia in April, and then Books in the City in Salt Lake City, Utah in June.
Okay. And what did we not talk about with regard to Tricia, the author, the business owner, that we really should have said something today about?
I think we covered most everything. I really love writing characters who are inspiring and fun, and I just want my readers to go along with those stories.
Fantastic. Tricia, thanks so very much again for joining us here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Really enjoyed your time here on the Wise Ones, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. Me too, Red.
Bye now. Reverend Laughlin here. The next show is called Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Typically, I do a 4 to 8 week program where I'm talking about a particular topic, cancer or aging or doesn't matter. We cover weight loss. We cover a lot of them. They're found on the playlist on YouTube under USA Global TV. Just type in Reverend Laughlin there, and all my playlists come up for almost 300 shows. But on Talking Heads today, I'm taking what would I do? Last week I talked about what would I do if I had cancer? Well, based on what I know, this is what I would do. Well, one of the books I wrote, it's called Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. And so I said, what would I do if I'm aging and I want to kind of slow it down a little bit? So today my topic is, what do I do aging? So what causes you to age? What can you do about it? How effective is it? What are the risks if I do nothing? And so that's the focus on Talking Heads today, and that's going to start in roughly 22 minutes or so. So please join me on the USA Global TV and Radio Network for Talking Heads, and I appreciate your time today. See you next week. Take care. Bye, y'all.